Happy Friday, everybody. TGIF, thank God it's flat. My name is Josh Corey. You're listening to IronRealmMedia, Flat Earth Friday Fringe-CAST. We are joined by a usual cast of characters. Looks like we've got a pretty full house today, plus a special guest this week. First off, let's just say howdy to James. I haven't had a chance to talk to James pretty well all week, and I certainly have missed speaking to him. Jimmy James, how are you this week, sir?
I actually don't think he's here, Josh.
I think he dropped again, man. He's having issues with his connection today. We've lost him already.
Well, shit. All right, well then, I'll say hi to you, Walt. I talked to you this morning.
We hung out a bit this morning, just a bit, you and I and Rob. It was a great show. Had a blast with you guys.
For those of you that aren't aware, we are hosting a show on Truth Frequency Radio on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time. That is 10 a.m. to noon, Greenwich Mean Time. It's called the Ironworks. Check us out. We're out there pounding out the truth, hammering it out, all sorts of stuff. We cover pretty much everything. There's nothing that we won't cover. It's just that we've been covering a lot of Las Vegas lately, and I'm about sick to death of hearing this Las Vegas crap.
Yes. Oh, it's done. And yet it's not. That's the problem. They're still inventing the story today.
Right. Rob, you joined us this morning. How are you doing? Did you get a good night's sleep?
I did. I'm lovely rested. Like the birds are singing, the blue skies. Lovely, lovely day. Thanks for asking. I went on a couple of rants last night, but everyone will have to go and jump on TFR and have a listen. It was good. I thought it was a really, really good show. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And we did plan on having Adam Meakin pop in, but seeing how it is Friday the 13th, scary. Ooh.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I had a very bad day. And I was gutted I didn't get to join you guys, but luckily Rob was there to save the day, I heard. So, yeah.
We would have loved to have you, and hopefully we can get up there on Tuesday next week. That'll be great.
Yeah, looking forward to it, guys. Looking forward to it.
And Mr.
He's back.
John Savage, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, Josh, and hello to everyone. Welcome. Hello, James. We can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm on the iPhone again. Thanks, guys. Having technical difficulties today. Pleasure to be here.
That's cool. You might as well talk while you can, mate. Say hello.
Yeah,
so
how
is everybody? I've been busy. I've been doing kind of been grinded by the outside world a bit, just doing obligations for the stuff Walt knows all about benefits and that kind of thing, and it's just frustrating. Wear you down. So I'm happy to be here. It looks like I won the struggle, and I'm going to get what I needed, but it's unfortunate that the people in the places that are supposed to be, there to help, a lot of the times they can't, or they make it a real difficult process, and it shouldn't be that way. But unfortunately,
James, just for the sake of people who don't know what the arse you're going on about, in terms of James is, as far as I'm aware, having issues in terms of your studio. What you're meaning to?
No, I was actually just talking about that. That's going on, which is heart-wrenching.
Are we talking about the censorship?
No, we're actually talking about health and government benefits and disability benefits for actual life to live, like disability live allowance benefits and stuff. So
your third kick in the nuts at the moment.
I'm dealing with I'm not to upset anybody, but it's like a 5-alarm fire drill I'm going on about. And I'm really happy to be here because you guys are always it's such a relief to talk to like-minded people, brothers, and to get some love back in, because I paid into this stuff for years. I used to make very good money. And, I always, respect that we take care of those that need it. So for me to actually need it and to see how unfortunate it is that other people have maybe taken advantage to the point where regular caring folks have to give you the third eye just because of abuse. It gets a little hard. Like it shouldn't have to be this hard for people that are sick. So anyways, that's my little rant.
I'll add to that, James. I'm suggesting the amount that possibly you would be asking to draw off the state is well shy short of the amount that you paid back in the day in taxes.
Unfortunate is that other people have maybe taken. I say this with absolutely no dignity or pride. Like that gets knocked away. But I was in the hundreds of thousands for the last 5 years in income before cancer, and then being disabled from surgery has left me. So literally, I have seen both sides of the coin and can relate to a lot of it. And I'm happy that I'm not in that world anymore, but I'm also sad because now that I'm here, so many bloody people need help, man. Like, they really do. Like, it's tough. So, anyways, my cheeriness. How is everybody else? I'm on the spot. My face is red. Look at me. You got me. You got me all flushed. But
it's good to hear your voice, James.
Good to see you, brother. We missed you. And I'm glad things are getting better. For sure. I'm glad they're getting your benefits straight, man. Trust me, I've dealt with it myself.
Yep.
So we have a pretty special guest with us today. This is by far one of my favorite flat earthers.
James.
But before I jump into that, we have some future flat earthers out there listening in the car right now on their way down to Florida. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to Layla and Dalen, who are in the car listening on a road trip going to Florida with their moms. So I just wanted to let you know that there's lots of information headed your way. So I want you to keep your ears open so that you can take a lot of this info back to your science teacher.
Hey, Layla. Hey, Dalen.
Hello. We're glad you're listening.
So just remember, the earth is flat, whether your teacher will tell you about it or not. She may not even know, but you can believe that there is no curvature out there and there is no motion. So that pretty much leaves very room for doubt as to what the actual shape is not. It is not a ball. It is not a spinny pear in space. So that being said,
hashtag spinny space pear.
Hashtag spinny space pear. That being said, we have an artist on our hands today. Again, one of my favorite flat earthers. I ran across him very early in my search, and there was just something about his voice that just really drew me to him. I don't know if it was the calm, the peace that he exudes, but I've been a fan ever since. So I just wanted to welcome everybody, Mr. Antonio Subirats, and thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, I say in my mellowest voice. Thanks, guys. You said earlier you have a special flat earther. You don't. You have another flat earther. Yeah, I am another flat earther. Absolutely, because this place is flat. And once you realize and you start testing and looking closely, you see, it's like, dude, this place really is flat. The globe really is just an illusion. And that's it. That's what it comes down to. By the way, I wanted to ask, sorry, I didn't catch your name. The dude who's filling out the paperwork for the benefits.
James.
So
James,
I'm having a bit of a geek out here. I'm sorry. I'm going to be honest. I'm actually almost shaking a bit. Antonio, I didn't know you were going to be here. Dude, I love you, man. You literally, you freaking made me laugh like almost squeaker in my pants when I seen that the first time. You're amazing. Thank you for being here.
I was listening to the Red's Rhetoric video you put out a few days ago, and I was listening to that yesterday. I thought that was funny.
That was an oldie, wasn't it?
Was that old? I only listened to it a couple of days ago.
I had a right flashback, mate. I'm thinking, what's going on?
A year ago, wasn't it?
Popped up. Yeah.
Oh, was it that long ago? I only listened to it yesterday, and about the sun not moving. He reckons it doesn't move.
Yeah.
Well, we know.
Relative to what?
Yeah.
The actual hangout was about 3 hours. I condensed that because, and that was the second time I edited that video and uploaded it. The first time I showed how many times they muted me. They must have muted me around 50 times in the hangout. Okay. But when I put it up there, people are like, dude, you're so patient. Oh, it was making me anxious. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take away the anxiety from it. So I did. I took away, because I was getting freaking stressed. I was doing deep breathing and everything, you know? But yeah, it's when you have somebody who's so convinced that they're on a globe and you point something out to them that makes them go, shit, that doesn't make sense. They can't deal with it. And they go into what we know is cognitive dissonance. One of the points he makes, which we all know, is centrifugal and centripetal motion are based on a fixed object. So the circling is fixed. When you move that, which was my whole point, which is why first I spoke about those two, fictitious forces, and then about the sun moving. It's not static, so it's not a fixed point.
Dude, you were so far ahead of them, you didn't even take them to get to that point of explanation, from my understanding. I was constantly frustrated when you talk about frustration, that they weren't even close to comprehending that if you spin something on a string and you move your hand, it all turns to shit.
Yeah.
But basically, excuse my French, I've ruined the show again. Yeah, but do you get me? That was the point that I all back then, and I kind of analyze stuff, and that's the thing that I think we constantly comment on here is the level of opposition's the wrong word, but the quality of the opposition is so far behind that they seem to neglect the fact that we did what they did a long time before we stood up as flat earthers. And I only blow a bit of smoke, mate, but as Walt alluded to, respect to you, fella. You're one of the first people I remember seeing and standing up there and saying these crazy things. So, yeah, we are all flat earthers and we are all the same. There are no leaders. But respect, fella, you were one of the first people I saw and took inspiration from.
Can I stop Adam blowing smoke? And I'll just say, I was watching it. It was awesome. Could you give us like a rundown, like in the eloquence that you're renowned for, of what it was you were trying to get across to Red's rhetoric? Obviously, in just a small rundown, that would be awesome for anyone who couldn't quite even handle the cut edited version for anxiety or just can't be bothered to listen to anything Red's rhetoric says. But yeah, please.
Sure. Okay, so the heliocentric model is based on the principle that you can isolate motions and you can say the sun is fixed, and because it's fixed, gravity has a pulling motion that counteracts this pulling away motion of spin. That's what it says, okay? So the centripetal motion or the centripetal force would be the force that a string exerts on a ball that's spinning, or if you're on a ride, like the wall of death or any of these spinning things where you're forced onto the wall, or even your tumble dryer, your washing machine, when it's spinning fast, the actual shape that the clothes push themselves to mold themselves to, so the drum in your washing machine, the drum itself is offering the centripetal, which counteracts the centrifugal, which is the pushing away force. So in the universe, spin causes this spinning awayness, and gravity offers this pulling backness. This is based on the principle of the thing that is doing the pulling back and the pushing away being fixed. So like it was mentioned earlier, if you spin a string or a yo-yo, whatever, around your hand, as long as your hand is relatively fixed, you're going to be moving it enough to cause a bit of a spin. As long as that's fixed, you're going to spin and describe a circle, no problem. But the minute you start moving that around, this circle stops being an orbit, any kind of rational orbit. That's what I was getting at. I was saying, look, guys, your model's broken. Your model says the Earth orbits the sun as if the sun was static, but your model also says the sun is not static. It's weaving up and down along the I think it's the ecliptic of the galaxy, and along the arm of the galaxy too. So it's not a fixed central point to offer the centrifugal and centripetal balance. That's what it was.
Brilliant. Yeah, and they didn't. Do you think Reds knew where you were coming from?
Yes, he got it.
I think he'd come across that before, I think.
But when he said relative to what, that's when he got it. He got it because he knew that if he isolates it and says, well, if you consider the sun to be the center of the solar system, which means not moving, then sure, no problem. That's why I was refusing to be pinned down, and why eventually I said, okay, relative to space, which is where motion happens. Okay, relative to that. And he had to say, no, it's not moving. Like, well, yes, it is.
Basically, nothing is static in space, in their space, is there? I mean, it's just impossible, basically.
Not only is nothing static, but there's also no central point at which, like even the beginnings, the origins of the Big Bang, in their theory, even that is not static. There's no stationary point anywhere in the universe, according to them, in their cosmology. It's the whole thing is fantasy.
Mate, you speak like you have known forever. And I don't want to ask the question of how long you've known it's flat, but you speak and you argue like you've known it forever.
Okay, well, what it is this. I was very into space, incredibly. Read lots of science fiction. I urge people to read for science fiction, even when it's off-world. I read The Songs of Distant Earth by Arthur C. Clarke. It's an awesome story, an off-world story. So I was
Dude, just a quick question. How long have you been knowing the Earth's flat?
It's, around the end of 2015, so not that long.
No, similar.
Yeah, most of us kind of the clue.
So you're really cocky then, because that's similar. That's similar to I think a lot of us here, and you're out there straight away shouting the verse.
It depends how much research you do, though. Really, I mean, if you put in every hour of every day for months on end, then you can be cocky and you can come out quick. It doesn't take long to learn flat Earth. You can do it in a month, but you won't sleep for the whole bloody month. Or you can take it over 2-3 years, or be like other people that know it is, but don't want to say.
No. That's when we all met, John. I'd done a lot of research, and if I didn't have met you guys, I'd still be sat on my own doing this. There's a lot of other research that I do on my own. Yeah, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be out there. I wouldn't have come out of the closet. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't be. That's not true. I'd still talk to people as I always do, but I wouldn't be engaging in a media form of.
Well, the reason that as soon as I got it, I thought I've got to help these guys, because there were very few people at the time. There was Mark Sargent hadn't finished his clues. There was D. Murphy 25. There were a number of them, but there were very few and far between. So Eric Dubay, Jeronism, the clues, Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, was already making stuff. So there were already people bringing attention to it and highlighting various different things. And what I saw was that there was a lack of people, that they needed more people. More people were needed. So at the same time, just total separate, there was a whole lot of clamor about celebrity and the Kardashians and a whole bunch of artificial, can we say, bullshit?
Absolutely.
Okay. Totally synthetic, crass, meaningless artificiality and celebrity. Okay, celebrity used to be somebody recognized for a remarkable quality, an admirable quality. That's what celebrity used to be. Now it was just complete crap. So I thought, right, if what they're doing, the instruments that orient and shift our kind of social engineering, if what they're doing is they're bringing down the idea of celebrity, then I'm going to jump into this YouTube celebrity bullshit and say, hey guys, you know, all these celebrities that you see in the magazines, they're just fucking not, they're just normal people. I'm a normal person. You're a normal person. Put yourself out there. If you have something that you can contribute, put yourself out there. And I did.
Adam is not a normal person, mate. You know, where you'll realise that in a couple of hours' time.
But no, you make a good point there, Antonio. And I think what you brought to the show was, well, a unique perspective from my point of view. I think I'm quite, what would it be, left-brained, sort of practical sort of side of things. You brought a sort of a right-brained, creative, artistic side to it that is in the same way that Rory Cooper did with my perspective, and he was able to animate it, which was amazing. But just a small blow for you, then it was when you covered the issue that I was trying to raise in my gyroscope videos, and you used a CD and a pencil, or a CD and a straw, and I was like, oh my god, how simple is that? But it's so visual and obvious. Well, obvious to you, not me. That was my stumbling block, was trying to get across what it was that I was showing, and you did it perfectly. John. So there you go.
Well, I have to say, I only used a CD and a rod because I didn't have a gyroscope. Otherwise, I would have used the gyroscope.
Yes, you got a surprise for us later, though, haven't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Sorry, James.
Antonio, sorry, just to answer your question. My name is James. I'm the guy with the forums. And then I was going to say to John the hours that we spent trying to come up with a way to show the gyroscope, which you did with a CD and a pencil. But John Savage and I spent weeks trying to translate
I spent so many hours trying to explain it to you, and then suddenly it went click, didn't it, at some point? I think it might have been after you saw Antonio's video.
Yeah, it was. I think it probably was. Yeah.
There you go.
Or the turntable, right?
Tip of the hat there.
The thing is, I grew up in Spain, yeah? And at the time, Spain, the level of technology in Spain, we had toys just like any other Western country, but we were a backward Western country. I was born in the era of Franco. Franco, the dictator, was still alive. So we didn't have Ataris, and actually my cousin had an Atari, and we used to play Pong, you know, but things were very limited at the time. So we played with more traditional toys, one of which is a gyroscope. It looks like a
spinny top.
Say again?
Like a spinny top. I know those ones. They were yeah. I know exactly.
But these are traditional for Catalonia, and they're shaped like a pine cone. Okay, that's the shape. You put the string at the top. You wind it all the way down to the bottom. You hold it with your fingers like a yo-yo. You put it around your middle finger, and you throw it with force, okay? Once it's spinning, once you've got at it, you throw it, and you have competitions where you try to throw one and have it hit the ground, bounce, and land on top of another, okay? So you do all kinds of stuff. You put a piece of paper underneath it, you lift it, you place it on top of 2 or 3, to which you've already done this, and you get 2 or 3 standing as a tower of gyroscopes. So we did a lot of playing with gyroscopes. They always fascinated me. And when I could get my hands on a gyroscope that was one of these crank gyroscopes, where you crank it to speed it up and then play with it, I was always fascinated with them, you know? So that's where like awesome. The understanding of the gyroscope came from.
They were the original spinning tops, weren't they? Some of them had flashy lights, and they were made of tin or whatever, and they were brilliant. Yes. I remember them. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So you mentioned something that you grew up in Catalonia or were born there. Was that right? Yeah. Right.
I was born and brought up there. Yeah.
We'll have to get into that a bit later.
Cool. I was going to say. Oops, sorry.
Sorry, mate. You mentioned before you'd bought a gyroscope as well.
I did. I bought a super precision gyroscope that's not a toy. You know, like a gun that shoots bullets. It's not a toy. You know.
How long did it take you to get that?
Well, shall we inform people of this is something that's been going on IRM for a while. John Savage is the only known member of IRM who can get ownership of one. And it was something we featured when I went to get one, saw the website, went to the website and saw the excuse put there that they would stop taking orders, etc., etc. And it was something that me and John mentioned last week between ourselves, and we had a quick look. I think we had a look on the show. I mentioned it on the show, and I had a quick look and didn't talk about it on the show, but it was still the same web page, and I didn't bother to fill the email response to say I wanted one in, but apparently you have, dude, and please carry on.
Yeah, well, the first time I looked for it was about the time I made the gyroscope video, and already by then they had the wait, did they already have the? No, they didn't quite have the embargo. You know, we've got a large order and we're not taking orders until we filled it portion, which is what they had later. Took a look. I saw how much they cost. I thought, damn, I can't afford one just yet. I opened the Patreon, hoping that people would say, there you go and buy one. They didn't. So I had to wait and save and save. And by the time I did have enough, they'd put this caveat, which was, we can't fill what they're saying is this French YouTuber did a video about the gyroscope, and due to this, the guy has like 2.3 million followers. Due to this, they had a huge number of gyroscopes on back order, and they wouldn't take any more orders until they filled that. If you were interested, like you said, send an email. Yeah. So I took a look and I thought, oh, okay, I'll just wait a few weeks. I took a look again, still the same, you know, waiting a couple of weeks between each time I looked. And eventually I thought, dude, how long is this going to go? Is this just a reason? Is this paranoia kicked in? Are they just doing this so they don't have to send any to flat earthers? What is this? And eventually I saw they say about the email. So I sent them an email, and it was, I think, about 6 weeks of waiting. I went back and sent another message, another email. And a couple of weeks ago, I get a message back saying, hey, guys, saying, hi, Antonio, thanks for your interest. We're now taking orders. So it's like, quick, sent the order. So I now have one. And
can you see that on the screen?
Yes.
That's live. That's what the screen, that's what the website right now is saying. I'm trying to get it bigger, but I can't.
Yeah. So it's still saying that.
Yeah, so saying we have had a huge number of orders for the gyroscope due to a popular YouTube Dr. Nosman in France reviewing it. We've decided to suspend sales. That makes a lot of sense. We've decided to suspend sales until we can catch up with the production and dispatch. If you want to purchase one, click here. Blah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Nothing to do with that.
John, have they gone up in value? Like I'm just throwing numbers out here. Were they $300 when you got yours, and now they're $1,000? Have they shot up in price?
I don't know. Ask Antonio. How much did you pay for it? Did you get it with the gimbals?
Yes.
I think I paid $135 for mine in Christmas 15.
With the gimbals?
With the gimbals, yeah.
Close to that, approximately the same.
Yeah, I think
that's good, isn't it? Right. That's good, isn't it? Yeah, that's surprising. That's actually surprising.
Yeah, well, you know, the guy, it's an engineering firm. Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
I was just saying it's an engineering firm, and they're like, dude, we've got loads of orders, brilliant. They're not usually. I've known several people who worked for engineering firms. They're not as cutthroat as the companies that make more meaningless things. You know, if they have steady, then they don't really hike their prices. Like, in fact, it happens with technology. The price comes down with technology too.
I had quite an interesting email sort of tennis match with the company owner. I think his name's Glenn Turner. Yeah, he was quite. He was amenable enough, you know. He wasn't immediately calling you a retard and this sort of thing, but you could see it, you could feel it in the voice. and he was currently writing a book on focal pendulums. So I was, he didn't take too kindly to me, but yeah, he's a nice enough guy. He actually left Twitter after talking to me about this on Twitter. I don't think anyone's ever heard from him again on Twitter. So yeah, quite interesting.
Interesting. I tell you what, I'd love to see somebody write a book about the Foucault pendulum at the equator, swinging north to south.
Right.
Expand.
Okay, well, the equator is not moving in a circle to which the pivot point of the pendulum is at an angle. It's moving in a straight line for all intents and purposes.
On the fictional ball, yeah,
on the fictional ball. So if anything, maybe they would say that at the end of the swing, the pendulum, the weight becomes fractionally lighter, perhaps. I don't know, but it can't precess. There's no chance.
They'll pull something out, like the Fresno, whatever it was, they pulled out for Mickelson Morley or Mickelson Gale or whoever it was. But I mean, there's a classic quote, isn't there, that says, if pendulums were registering the spin of the Earth, then there wouldn't be a single plumb bob pendulum anywhere on the planet that is still.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd all be living in Dr. Seuss houses.
Hippie.
Hey, do you want to hear something funny about the guy that owns the company, the Glenn guy that you mentioned?
Oh, yeah, go on.
Okay, so I get my gyro, I put it all together, and I spin it, and it's not hissing. It's doing like a... I'm thinking, there's a heck of a lot of movement there. What the hell? So I spin it a few times, and there's this... until it gets when the axis is vertical, it hisses. But when it's not, it's doing this vibration. What the hell? Have they sent me a duff one? So I try various different things. I make sure everything's tight. And same thing. It's going... What the... So I contact him, and very politely say words to the effect of, yo, dude, you've sent me a duff one. What do you want to do? I've tightened everything, and when it's vertical, when the central axis is vertical, it hisses very faintly, and when it's not, there's a vibration sound. Call me as soon as you can. And they send it on Skype, by the way, because I've got their Skype details on the message on the website. So I then look at it again, and I'm thinking, damn it, am I going to have to wait weeks again to get another one? So I make sure everything's really tight, and that's when I notice this screw that's on the other side, that's a straight edge.
Mm-hmm.
And I tighten that. It's not tight, okay? I didn't want to play around with it too much. I tightened it. Oh, okay. Spun it. Now it's perfectly fine. So I thought, damn it, I've got to send her like I'm a retard message now to this dude. So I did. So I said, where I said that I fixed everything tight? Well, I hadn't. I hadn't seen that.
But there is an intrinsic fault in those gyros, though, that I noticed, and so did Rob Durham, which is the reason why he had that sort of luminous red blob of Play-Doh on the side of his. That they're not balanced. Once you remove the motor, then it becomes imbalanced, which is utterly useless for a gyroscope. So, I mean, to be fair, Glenn Turner did say that anyway, they will send you a precision-made screw that'll fit into where the motor attaches for free of charge. Just send him an email. But that was a bit of a clanger, I thought.
Yes, I saw the same thing, and I thought, oh man, I don't want to risk trying to price this off, that flat screw, flathead, in case that's just an extra thing that you can. I don't know why it would be
or
there.
Something like everything else, or something. Springs just go boing, and 100 different pieces come out, and you're like, "Fuck."
Yeah, but I thought that it was maybe something you're supposed to take off. Maybe it's like a half turn thing to take it off, and everything's fine. But maybe it isn't. Okay. But what it was doing was definitely making it precise on its own. Okay. So it's like, you're saying, it's imbalanced. I'm thinking, oh, dude, it's imbalanced. So eventually I thought, you know what? I need to make a battery pack to run it like you guys did, like you and Rob did, like you did actually, with the battery pack balanced, so I can have it running continuously rather than have it from a cable, that because of the objections that people bring to that.
Yeah.
So I thought, I know I need to make something that will go there. So I know I need to make something that will balance it. So it's okay, I'll leave it as is. Yeah. It still serves to demonstrate various different things. It's not fine enough to stand absolutely still.
Well, the battery packs are easy to make. I mean, you just go down a model, model car shop and pick up a four gang AA battery pack. You just snip the wire to the motor and then connect them up to the battery pack. You can stick a switch in there if you want, but I wouldn't, because it'll add more fuel to the detractors saying, well, that's unbalanced, it, blah blah, and all this sort of stuff. And that runs for about 2 hours actually, a lot longer than I thought it would.
It's the attachment from that battery pack to the gyro. That's, what thread do I need? How do I attach that to the gyro itself?
Well, what I used was you've got, when you get the gyroscope, you get a bunch of additional rods and bars and weights and all sorts of stuff on there. I just used one of the rods and attached it opposite the motor, and then elastic banded the battery. Have you seen my reply to Sly?
Yes.
Okay, well that's got quite good pictures and close-ups, and I'll take it all apart and taking it all apart and measuring it and weighing it and all the rest of it. But yeah, it's simple. But the problem I came across was, although the motor is 6 volt, and by the way, I do have a lead band riptide around the motor, which I move left and right, up and down the motor in order to finely tune the balance. But I can explain that another time. What was I saying? Bugger. Yes, what I found was that the 4 AA batteries adding up to 6 volt doesn't bring the same pitch sound. The sound, when you fire it up on the motor and you leave it attached for say 10 minutes or 5 minutes, you get a very consistent whining sound from the gyro itself.
It's almost a whistle.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it comes out at a pitch, and you don't get that same high pitch as you do when you're running it through the mains. So what I'm currently working on is, I think it's a 7.4 volt battery from a Canon camera, and that's where I've got stuck, because I'm trying to attach the electrical connections from the Canon battery to the motor without banjaxing the Canon battery, because it's come out of my only DSLR, so I don't want to bollocks that up. So it's still a work in progress, and I must say I'm staring at it now, and I haven't touched it for probably
Antonio, you said
months.
that you were going to You said that you were going to change things up a bit because you were reading the comments on John's video. So, what changes are you thinking you're going to do?
Well, first, on the videos I'll be making, the first thing I'll be doing is dispelling all of the erroneous messages, of which there were lots, saying things like, you have it oriented the wrong way. It's like, no, dude, you don't understand gyroscopes if that's what you're thinking. Okay, so demonstrating how those messages are mistakes, just so that those people don't come and make the same, leave the same comment on my videos. Okay, so I'll be demonstrating when the gyroscope, when the central axis is vertical, it's not going to show the sidereal rotation. Because the axis is on the same plane as the moon. Yeah. Oh, right. Cool. I'm watching. Ah, right.
Okay. Can you hear me? I'm stood here crouching. Yeah. What I'm holding here is the next phase, which is what you'll see is can you see that? You can see loads of turntables.
Yes. And belts.
Gearing up and down. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to put it down and then I can talk to you.
Yeah.
You've finally got someone to send it to there, Adam. You can get it out of your shed or off the kitchen table. And...
I'm buying the bugger myself, mate.
Beware, Antonio. Incoming.
Okay.
He's going to send it to you.
I tell you what. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, as we always do on here, we take valid criticism on board, and some of the stuff that our friend Red Rhetoric did back then, and sometimes things take a while. As you can see, that's all been built by hand. Some of the criticism we took on board was that, and it was as John proved in one of his rebuttal videos, it was criticism we'd already made ourselves. Is that any form of the clock rotation systems that happen, they tend to be gear based. So what you've got there is, well, I've not fine tuned it to 24 hours. I've actually got it to 28, which is sufficient to prove the point. But I'm not quite happy. I want 24.
28 is better, mate. 28 is better because it's a lower angular turn per hour.
Yeah, but it's not right, John. So that's what's annoying me.
Well, none of us know what's right. So, well,
yeah.
Yeah, we have to be perfect, don't we, John? Everything that we do, we have to be perfect at it. Where they can just throw any old shit out, and we have to buy it.
I mean, we can make it 24 hours, and they say, dude, what are you doing? You know, it's 23.53 hours.
It's a sidereal day. Yeah, one of the funniest I've heard is people saying when they're criticizing it is that the Earth moves smoothly. It doesn't tick like a clock. And it's like, can you prove the Earth moves first before you start telling me how the fucking moves?
John, for 2 years on Twitter, I've been fighting with these people telling me that the Earth is spinning. It's spinning. Oh, my goodness, it's spinning. Well, this last 2 weeks, I've gotten 2 different tweets from ballers explaining to me that, well, it's actually just barely moving.
Yeah, I've seen them.
I mean, come on.
What do you say to that, Antonio?
I say, if it's spinning so slowly, why is it supposed to be pear-shaped? Isn't that because it's spinning so fast that it's forced the south of the equator to expand more than the north? You know? Come on.
Because it's been spinning for 4.5 billion years.
Doesn't matter. Really slowly. So what I was going to use, guys, was one of these. You see, it's a 24-hour mechanism. Yes, it's gear, but it's not gear like the clock. I was going to use the same CD. First, I was going to show it, and this was just going to be to demonstrate that it moves along, you know, the base, that the friction bearing is, the force of the gyroscope, the rigidity is so strong that the friction bearing doesn't cause it any problem. I mean, the friction bearing would have to be very, very tight to cause it a problem. So this is what I'm going to use just to show that. But then I'm going to use a equatorial mount to show what it should do.
Nice.
So
they're not
that's
cheap.
it. And then, no, well, a friend of mine, one of my globing friends, has got two of them. He's got there are two different types. There's one like a standard one for star trails, and then there's a more technologically advanced one, which means it cheats a little bit better. That has an extra axial point and it's motorized in a different way and all kinds of stuff. And he said that I can borrow it. So yeah, sure.
Lovely.
Nice. Yes.
Because I was looking at them as well, and they were coming in quite pricey. So yeah, as I speak, next door in the workshop there is there's a CD hot glued to a excuse me, to an aerosol can lid, which nicely fits on top of the 24-hour plug timer. If you put the little metal bits in the right place, then it fits on absolutely snugly. And I'm just trying to get this battery working. Where the wires to the motor are so thin, I think it's burning it out or something. But yeah, brilliant.
Well,
I'm so glad someone else is taking up the mantle as well and going to carry on. I'd love to talk to Rob about it. Are you in touch with Rob?
No. Only a couple of comments here and there. Mine didn't come with a power outlet, to a wall plug. Mine just came with a battery pack.
Yeah. Sorry, I hacked mine. I cut it off and stuck a mobile phone charger, like a 1990s Nokia mobile phone charger. I think it gives out 7. It might be 7.2 volts, something like that. Yeah, so the battery, otherwise you're going to burn through batteries. That thing only runs on them for about 2 hours a time. So, I quickly got rid of the battery pack.
Well, this, by the way, with the pins knocked down, it will still play, but it will still move, and the CD fits totally snugly, So
perfect,
hot glue.
And the CD also fits the gimbal legs perfectly with about a couple of millimeters to spare all the way around. It's beautiful. Sorry, Adam, carry on.
I'm just being a geek because you said it's not a clockwork mechanism inside that. What is that?
No, I said it's not like the clockwork mechanisms on the clock, which tick kind of aggressively, which is what Red's objection was. This, you can hear this cranking pretty much. If you listen carefully, you can hear that it's going. It's continuously. The gear exchange is finer.
I took one of them apart, Antonio.
So it's still Adam. Is it still a toothed gear?
I've not ripped it apart.
I took it apart. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go on.
Right, it's a shaft with a spiral like a screw, like a drill bit on it. So that just turns, and then it's linked to another whatever that turns. Sorry, that was explained like a 5-year-old, wasn't it?
Okay, no. So it's still tooth. So the point of what we're trying to build there is these are bearings off of a weightlifting machine. So they're what you turn the the weights that I don't go to the gym. I have no idea. But from within that, I've took some tubing. So what we're trying to do is create fully circular motion. So at no point is there any form of change. And all we're trying to do is down gear that circular motion as opposed to down gear a cogged motion, which is stepped by nature. And that's why I was just curious as to what's in there. So it is being geeky and responding to the criticism to the nth, but that's kind of all I was trying to demonstrate.
That's really cool. What you've described, John, is a torque screw, a torque gear, which is the spiral gear. So there's no tick point to it.
That's right.
The contact is continuous. Not to, what you're doing, I think is really cool, because when you set it up, especially if you video it with like pizzazz, it's like, dude, see if you can replicate this, to people like Red Rhetoric.
I don't do pizzazz.
If there's anything Adam has, it is zazz. He's known for his zazz.
Hey, but by the way, just a slight change of topic, just for a brief moment. You were saying about the benefits that you're applying for. Can I ask you if you have already submitted the paperwork, or if you have the paperwork with you at home?
That's for you, James, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah. I was wondering if we were going to get back to that. That's good. Now, where did I put them? I had them all in a nice sticky here for you.
So you have not submitted them yet?
Hold on.
No,
I haven't. I mean,
brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, you can you can chill, like, really. Okay, be thankful that you have not already submitted them. Okay, because I'm going to give you some advice now that they don't give you. Okay. I had to do this. I worked with people with mental health problems and with learning disabilities, various different disabilities, and filling out the disability living allowance, which is what we get here in the UK, was part of what I had to do. When you're answering the questions, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. When you're answering the questions, the people who are asking the questions and the way the questions are formed are really specific. They are to dismiss people who are just trying to claim it just, for free money, and people who really need it. Okay. And what they're asking is on your worst day. So wherever you read, imagine that it says, on your worst day, can you blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, very
How
good
far,
advice.
blah, blah. That's, okay, always have that in your mind. On your worst day. All of the questions on your worst day. They don't want to know about when you're not so unwell. It's not apply for not being so unwell benefits. It's apply for being unwell benefits.
Can I just interject and say thank you very much for that? That's a very educated position. And I wish I'd been told that. I wish I'd been told that at the beginning. However, I did it the other way, and that's actually the reason why the insurance company has terminated my benefits, because I had a follow-up after, the mandatory, it was I think 24 months, and then I had a review. And because I answered the questions about my day-to-day, okay, so, like, for example, I walk with a severe limp. I wake up with insane swelling in my groin. I had a dichotomy done to my lower groin, had a couple of tumors removed, and had a sanguine hernia replacement at the same time. And both of those things, like, they think the hernia shifted, or the filament they used, and then, so whatever, regardless, I have nerve damage. I have problems, with urinary and bathroom stuff. So it's quite intense. But with that, I told them the truth. I mean, it's been a couple of years. I push myself. I go to the pool. I walk very slow with a stick, but I push myself. So they took that as I'm great, I'm recovered, and that was like my best. They took my best and didn't even consider the worst.
Yes.
It broke my heart, Antonio. They literally broke my soul that day. I was not expecting that, because I even went so far as to, like, I opened up about everything, even the sexual problems and that kind of details. Like, well, I'm not going to get into them here, but there's a lot to this. So for me to go out and pour my heart out, that's really exposed me. And then they used that and said goodbye. So fool me twice, shame on me. I have been to several councils and meetings. I've been doing reading, just like my flat earth research. And I was actually told last week the same gem that you just told me, and I wish I had known that before. But
I think the moral of the story there is that honest people are too honest, aren't they?
Yes, but it's also so these questions are composed by psychologists. It's not just clerks in some administrative office.
That's interesting.
and they know
stuff, isn't it?
Yes, they know that people of a certain mentality will want to appear better than they are, especially men. Okay, because we're supposed to be more physical, so we will lean towards how well can you do this thing. Okay, the truth is, majority of the time, not very well. Some of the time, not so bad, and we say, not so bad. Yeah, that's just how we tend to be. Okay,
it's
and they
egotistical
know
blackmail, isn't it? They
It
word
is.
the questions knowing that most people will say, you know, how are you feeling today? Yeah, I'm feeling fine. You know, when actually you're feeling like shit, and you know that's exactly what they do. But I can back up what you say, because I was I was representing a friend of mine in court, and he was had himself a solicitor and was filling out a form for his solicitor with his solicitor, and that's exactly what he was saying. He was like, answer this question, and my mate would be like, well, yeah, I'm okay at that, yeah, not too bad, and he's like, on your worst day, and he was using those exact words, and that stuck.
This really is what they want to know, because so on the one hand, you've got they have a small mandate, you know, try and filter out as many as possible. But on the other hand, you've got the white knights in those organizations who are like, no, that's wrong. We're supposed to be providing a service because these are human beings who, as part of being our brethren, they deserve this. Not to go into the whole straw man, you know, legal name fraud and all of that, you know, but they say, no. We want to be able to help people. That's part of our task. So they get told, yes, well, these questions are for those people who are so unwell that they have no option but to say so unwell. Okay. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, that will do. It won't have been, the questions would not have been just written and rubber stamped. There will have been debated over each question. So they really are asking you to pay attention to the name of the forms and what it tells you. Pay close attention to it. They're not going to say there on your worst day, because that would just give the whole thing away. But look at what you're applying for, you know? So if it's to do with mobility, they want to know about your lack of mobility, not your best days when you have an extraordinary mellow, good day. They want to know about the worst day, the day that you can't get up. That's what they want to know about. And like they genuinely do want to know about it. And you can answer it absolutely honestly. Your worst day, this is the situation.
You really hit the nail on the head, though, Antonio, about the pride and ego, especially in the province I'm at. Like, it's big money, big oil money out here. Like, and you know, the men definitely really want to take. Like, I was a provider. That's what I do. I'm a provider, and yeah, you really hit it on the head too. It's ego quite a bit, I think. So
yeah. Well, you got some of these guys will lose a finger, but they can still do the job, and they will say, okay, I will take the compensation, but I would rather continue to work than take the compensation and go on these benefits, because of course they get paid so much more, but also because they want to still be that massive provider. And guys that work on oil wells and rigs, they provide well for the families, you know.
If I didn't have my faith and my family here, well, I call them family, but my brothers here, if I didn't sink into Iron Realm and into Flat Earth, my life would be completely different. You know, I'm very, very lucky and grateful that I was able to fill the lack of providing and doing and harness some of that brokenness and put it towards other people. So I started, you know, volunteering at my community church. I started serving those even more desperate and hungry and weaker than I am. And that really gave me a boost and kept me going. And then the boys at the Realm here are just, you know, they're my leaning staffs, right? So that's what's helped. And thank heavens for that, because hope's not in the biggest supply these days in the world, eh?
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Hey.
And if I can just say for everybody listening and everybody here, the fact that people are listening is telling us we're reaching somebody who might otherwise have been sat mouth open in front of the television. And we that are doing this are doing it not consciously for those people. We know that we might have been those people at some point in the past, but a knock-on effect or a side effect of what we do is sooner or later we reach those people who detach from life into the bubblegum world of nonsense television, and if left to be swept up by the tide or to go with the flow, if left to that, they get to retirement age, and if they haven't been medicated to the point that they never regain their consciousness fully, if that's not what happens, some of them get to retirement age and wake up from the stupor and just realize they've just lost it all, wasted it all unconsciously, you know? And this is part of what drove me to do this. It's like, nah, dude, I'm helping this.
They're so good at doing that nowadays too. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. They're so good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just change tack for a minute? You posted a video a couple of days ago about Newton's third law. You've got the
French.
He's on in front of a whiteboard and he's talking about rockets not working in space.
Uh-huh.
Can I ask you to use the way that you speak about rockets not working in space and the way you look at it?
Yeah.
Because many people out there will have seen Star Wars and they reckon rockets can work in space because of that. And
Just to give you a chance to think, Antonio, whilst he asks you to describe that wicked video, because that was awesome, man. That video, I showed it to the brother-in-law tonight, guys. It was one of the first things I showed him, I was shoving the air, and then shoving the side wall of the shed and showing the difference it had on me to him. Mm-hmm. That's sufficient help.
What?
Go ahead,
what a guy used to say, and we all got together in January of 2016, and the catalyst for all of us in the panel here, other than you, Adam, was a guy called Yish, and he was a big time flat earther, and he got us all together, and we all split because of rockets not working in space, and he believed that they still did. And he said that when there's an explosion, the explosion will go both ways. It'll push against one edge of the rocket, and it will propel the rocket forward. That was basically what he said. Basically, obviously, if you're in a vacuum, the way I see it, you see the explosion mainly being sucked straight out the back end of the bloody rocket. But he was saying, no, it's going to push the rocket. So, Antonio, how do you explain it?
Okay. When people say that, they're really talking about mass and mass changing form. So mass being converted into energy, and that energy pushing on the walls, the internal physical portions of the jet or the rocket, pushing that in exchange for pushing themselves out. Okay. What they don't mention is, first, if you were to take that situation and just allow the energy to leave rather than force it out, what would happen? In a vacuum of space, it would be not sucked out, but it would be expressed outwardly simply because of the pressure variance. Okay? So not to do with the force of the rocket, simple pressure would just suck the energy out. It would suck the juice out, the flame, it would suck. But the idea that within the region where that force meets physical matter, so if we look at a rocket going up, the top of the area where the jet is having an effect, okay, so be it the chamber or the outside of the jet, the topmost area, okay, At that point, there is also a bottommost point of that area. So if we think of inside the chamber where the force is generated and then strangulated, so it has to force itself through a smaller opening in order to gather that thrust, that valve, that point where it has to strangulate itself, that's also receiving force. So inside the chamber, this side, I don't know if you guys can see me, I'm talking with my hand in case guys can't see me. One portion of the chamber is receiving force, say, up. The other portion of the chamber is receiving force down from that same mass that's being converted into energy. So that's within the inside of the propulsion system. Now, the real question is between the inside and the outside, that borderline between the two. That's where the question actually, everything gets pinned down to that point. So at that point, there's no longer any force doing any pushing upwards or pushing downwards. It's simply an opening. Now, at that point, now you can call the vacuum and say, okay, vacuum, what do you do when you have an opening to something that has pressure? Pull. That's what it does. It just pulls everything. Or the pressure just...
Could I add to that just for a second?
And me
Sure.
after that.
Excellent. Now, the point I'm alluding to is the video. Later on in the video, he brings out a little drone, a little quadricopter, and he sets it up and he uses it and he puts it on a certain level of thrust, which exemplifies a certain level of output. And the little quadricopter goes up to a certain height, I don't know, a foot and a half or something. And underneath it, he's got a sheet of cardboard. And what he actually does is he lifts the cardboard and you see the drone go up. Now, that might look like a bit of magic, but what it's actually demonstrating is that the thrust that's being generated is being generated by the mass underneath the thing that's doing the thrusting. Now, the only way that thing goes any higher with the amount of thrust it's got is by lifting a solid object underneath it. And hopefully that exemplifies it. If the amount of lift and thrust is only equivalent to the amount of something you can push against. So as Antonio was saying there at the end, if what you're thrusting into is a vacuum, there is no piece of cardboard underneath the little quadricopter. Forever, there is never a point where the bit that's been thrust out ever meets something that has been thrust out before it. So no forward momentum in terms of the rocket itself is ever generated because of the vacuum.
That's absolutely, totally. And so in the same way as fire experiments, I forget the guy who made the video showing whether gunpowder and various other things can ignite. The only thing that ignited were the things that created their own oxygen with which to ignite. In other words, they stopped the vacuum being a vacuum for the brief period that reaction was happening locally, you know? If you remove that, like that was just with fire, okay? If you remove that and you bring it into space, so it doesn't matter whether it's 1 centimeter away from the outermost reaches of our never-ending, boundary-less atmosphere. Okay, when you get to the point where it's like, okay, now there's no more atmosphere, if we want to pretend that happens, 1 centimeter, 1 millimeter would be exactly the same as pointing the rocket away from the Earth. Being in the middle of nowhere, kind of thing.
You know those chambers where they put the rocket fuel that's got the self-igniting rocket fuel in there, and it still doesn't burn as it should. They're a great exemplifier of the power of the vacuum, because even within that small space, even though initially as the igniter molecule tries to heat up, as they then release to enable, as it's constructed to enable the oxygen molecule when it's free to become in contact with the igniting molecule, the power of the vacuum, even in a small chamber like that, pulls it so far away that atomically they don't react. All you see is a smouldering, and that's just a small scale vacuum that you can see that can stop rocket fuel igniting. Okay, so imagine that in the real vacuum of the unreal space.
Unless you're Adam Savage.
Yeah, not only is it small scale in terms of in a small container, you know, like dimensions small, but the quality of the vacuum, it isn't vacuum, you know. So it's like it's very close to vacuum, but it's not complete vacuum. So,
well, this is the point I wanted to raise. Was that, you know, I've seen a number of experiments on YouTube, yada yada, with balloons and rockets and all sorts of things in a semi-vacuum. You know, I mean, as much of a vacuum as they can get it to. But the problem I see is that space, as we're told, is not just a vacuum. It's weightlessness too. So everything in the rocket is weightless. There's nothing, you know, how can, I mean, you say you're pushing against the inside of the rocket. The rocket is weightless, the air inside, the fuel is weightless. I mean, we can't, and we certainly can't recreate that on Earth to put in a YouTube video and show people, look, see, this works in space. I mean, I don't know what you think about that, the weightlessness part.
That's such a cool point. You know where they say there's no up in space? Well, when I was describing my rocket, I said up. It's like, okay, the minute you leave Earth, there's no up. Okay, directionality is pretty much meaningless at that point. Because when they say there's no up in space, they're also saying there's no down in space. If there's no up and no down, then you can't establish forward and backward either, or left and right. You've removed the dimensionality of reality. You've removed that.
Relative to what?
John, what I would say there in terms of rocket propulsion is that they are weightless, and weight is a dimension described in respect of gravity. What they aren't is massless. So the force we're talking in terms of rocket propulsion is when those two masses collide and the resultant forces that are generated from it. Now, what I alluded to earlier is that these masses, whatever they are, they're obviously weightless. Whatever the masses are, they never collide because the vacuum of space precludes them from ever being able to get to the same position, because as soon as it ejects from the rocket matter, it becomes into the infinite void of space. So anything after that point will never become in contact with anything before that point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair point, mate.
Yeah, it dissociates. And not only this, but if you think of Newton's third law, it dissociates. So you have the rocket and you have the fire, the jet, whatever. Imaginatively speaking, because it doesn't happen, and if it did, they would be able to demonstrate it properly in a vacuum, and they can't, and they haven't because it doesn't. Now, it dissociates, so everything separates from everything else because it can. Okay, it's not held together by any kind of pressure. The heat has removed any kind of magnetic bonds or any electromagnetic, electrostatic bonds. So apart from the pressure, you have other things that might bond molecules together. Now all of those things are gone. So the things just totally disperse. Now with Newton's third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So you can say the rocket is there and the action is the thrusting thing and the reaction is the thrust. Say, okay, now the thing that did the reaction, that caused the reaction, which is the thrust, after the rocket has gone, that thing should still be causing an action which causes a equal and opposite reaction. What would that possibly be? What could the leftover thrust be causing? Because we know in our atmosphere, it causes a vortex. It leaves trails. It changes atmosphere. It causes condensation. What would it do in space? What would the subsequent reaction be?
Right.
None.
Let me explain that again in terms of that quadricopter. The reason the quadricopter goes off is that, and the only reason it only goes a foot, even though those blades are spinning so much, is that it's forcing so much air down. It's almost creating something solid in the amount of air it's pushing down. And in doing so, it's sitting on that solid layer of air. The point about a rocket is that's exactly how it works. But as soon as you get into space, there is nothing solid that can be created, because whatever has gone first can never be caught up by something that precedes, because the infinite vacuum of space pulls it away at an infinite speed into the infinite vacuum of space.
It's
away
equilibrium
from the much infinitely slower speed of the rocket jet propulsion output. Yeah. So it would never catch up with any atom that's got into the vacuum. So no solid layer can be created. So no thrust can ever be created. Totally.
And what he shows when he moves, so before he shows it, he explains that when he moves away the card, the thing will lose the columns on which it's supported, which now their foundation is this piece of card that he's holding a few inches underneath. When he moves that away, those are gone, and he drops to the ground, recreates them, and then starts to hover above. When a rocket left the atmosphere of the Earth, it would be the equivalent to this card being removed. So if we want to think we're on a ball with an atmosphere, the rocket would go out and then just poof. That's it. It has nothing more.
That's exactly what would happen.
You just said. That's it. If anything, it might travel with the momentum that it had
for a while.
Yeah. It's just. But the Globlings love getting into these arguments, even though they know that they can't demonstrate it. They will still argue the toss.
Can I ask you?
But the rocket would be relative to the space in the sun,
yes,
wouldn't it?
I was
sorry,
John.
Say,
no, sorry. I was going to say, can I ask you, changing tack completely here, just wanting to pick your right brain, really, with someone who may not be spatially challenged. I made a claim on my gyroscope videos that everything on Earth revolves 360 degrees in 24 hours. And I was just wondering if you agree with that. And that's on the X, Y, and Z axis, all summing up to 360 degrees. I don't mean everything physically changes on one axis 360 degrees, but 360 degrees in total in 24 hours. So if you're stood on the North Pole without a tilt, let's say, keep things simple, then you would revolve 360 degrees. If you stood on the other pole, you'd revolve 360. If you were stood anywhere in between, there is nowhere on Earth that you could place yourself that did not revolve 360 degrees in 24 hours. And you don't necessarily have to answer now, but I just wanted to plant that into your head and see what you thought about that.
Well, I've thought about this before. You're right. Okay, if you're spinning around the axis, your motion relative to that axis will be 360 degrees. But when Globlings argue with you, which they might, they have warped what a degree is, and are now calling on a different force, which is the motion of the Earth through space. In which case, those degrees are now being tacked on a matrix in space. Mm-hmm. And instead of making a circle, they are making it's like a sine wave through space. and they can claim anything they want to claim. They can just, if they want to stretch it out, because we're talking time versus motion, they can say, they say we go around the galaxy every, I forget how many hundreds of thousands of years around the galaxy. That's just something they've said. They can stretch things out as far as they want.
And all of those motions have to be accounted for, unless, of course, all of those motions strangely are perfectly in alignment with the angular rotation of the Earth. Now, if all of they were, then they wouldn't be picked up. But I've never heard that claimed by, as you say, the globelings. Do you know what I mean? So, and if they weren't, then gyroscopes and everything would have to detect that, John. And it would variate the 360 degrees as well, because there would be, in some places, dependent on the direction of the movement, more than 360 degrees in 24 hours, and in some places less, because of the angular direction you're traveling. Relative,
I disagree.
It depends what you're being relative
to. I think it all adds up to 360 degrees, no matter where you are. When you're on the equator, you can set a gyroscope up on the equator in such a way and orientation that it doesn't appear to move at all. However, if you set it up at 12 o'clock and went back to it at 12 o'clock, then it should be 180. It will be 180 degrees. The feet will be 180 degrees in the different direction of where you started it. There's no. For me, there's no getting around this, no matter where you are. And if you go halfway up between the equator and the North Pole, you're going to be changing in 12 hours' time. You're going to be the equivalent of 180 degrees out, whether that's in the X plus the Y and the Z axis. You're going to be 180 degrees out.
This is one of these reality versus the globe Earth paradigm nonsensical arguments where you're trying to balance, what you were taught against what you know.
Well, and you can take the Earth out of it, though, Adam.
Paradigms.
You can take the Earth out of it.
So my question then is, what is the 360 rotating to? Do you get me? What are we rotating in relation to?
The axis, the spin axis of the ball. You can take it, you can say we're not talking about the Earth anymore. We're just talking about a rotating ball. You've got a ball in front of you and you're rotating it on an axis. Every single thing you put on that ball, say you put a bunch of sticky tabs all over the ball and turn it a full 360 degrees, everything on that ball relatively is going to be turning through a 360 degree axis, whether it's X, Y, and Z added together axis, as it would be, say, if you're midway between the North Pole and the equator, or whether it's a single axis if you're on the North Pole, or a single axis on the equator. That's
okay. So the only way to explain that is that there is no such thing as parallax then. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to use that analogy, then you've got to kind of say, because obviously what you're talking about is, if we are talking about these relative motions of galaxy, sun, galactic center, universe, then those motions have to create parallax. So and this is what I'm trying to allude to, is the question you're kind of saying is one of those paradigm questions that alludes to the ball Earth model against what we see, and the two will never meet, and they can't meet because they're opposites, because there is no parallax. So what you're suggesting in terms of rotation could never occur in the ball Earth model, because it doesn't, as we see. Do you get me, or am I?
Can I add something? If we took the ball Earth, what you're, I'm just echoing what you're saying with parallax. If we took the ball Earth, and we fixed a gyroscope at the equator. We fixed 2 gyroscopes, one at the equator, 3. The equator halfway to the North Pole and at the North Pole. And we oriented them with a horizontal axis. Okay, so the axis is not vertical, it's horizontal. And
I've just got to jump in at this point, though, Antonio, because people get incredibly confused between axis and rotation. So it's if I can explain the rotational axis is the weight turning, and the God, what am I trying to say? I had it a second ago. I've just been blasted. My brain's gone dead.
I think you're trying to demonstrate the when it receives a force that causes precession and when it doesn't, and it's based on the weight, so the axis itself.
Well, you've got a spin axis, which is the axle running through the weight, and then you've got a rotor axis, which is the weight spinning. So when people hear people saying, the spin axis is horizontal, that means that the rotor axis is vertical. So it's up, down, the rotor, which is the way that I'd set my experiment up. Yeah. I'm clarifying for the listeners. The spin axis is the axle, and the rotor axis is the weight. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we have 3 gyroscopes, perfect gyroscopes, the ideal gyroscope. Okay. And we spin all of them with the same orientation, with the axis, a vertical axis. Okay, sorry, a horizontal axis. And we record a 24-hour period. Now, we imagine that the Earth is not rotating on its own axis. It's simply orbiting the sun. In a 24-hour period, those gyroscopes would show something. Now, because they're on a horizontal plane, they would show very little. Now we repeat the experiment, but this time we have a vertical plane. A horizontal plane. I'm getting jumbled up. So now we have the axis at 90 degrees to what we had it on the first test. And we do the same thing on all 3. They're spinning. And we imagine what those gyroscopes would do on 24 hours of Earth orbit around the sun for a non-rotating Earth. The gyroscopes would have to show a precession, drift. They would have to show drift because they would be oriented in the same position as when they were first fired up 24 hours later, but the relative position between them and where they were pointing in space, I think of it this way. Take a gyroscope to divide the whole universe in 2, left and right, or top and bottom, and consider it that way. You have a gyroscope spinning at the equator, 45 degrees north and north pole. And you now move the thing on which they're spinning just to the side. You don't rotate it, you just move it to the side. They're going to show a difference between how they were oriented between those 2 experiments. So one, when they were on a vertical axis, and second, when they were on a horizontal axis. There's going to be a difference between those 2. And there would be absolutely drift. But there isn't.
No.
There isn't drift. And if there was, then that drift would have to be included or summed, added to the Earth's axial rotation. So the gyroscope would turn 90 degrees in 6 hours, okay? But the Earth is also moving, so it's 90 degrees plus that little fraction of...
Yep. Plus a day out of 365 days, plus the...
Which would be...
rotation around the great attractor, or whatever the hell they're calling it now, spot in the sky. Yep.
Yeah. And the thing is, this should be absolutely child's play We should learn this at school in physics, and we should learn it by having a bell jar and a really good quality gyroscope spinning and show everybody, look, see how we're rotating on our axis? But we don't.
Well, I totally back your plea about a year ago for every university, library, museum to have a gyroscope in there running, showing us either the Earth is turning or either it's completely stationary, because I know exactly what it would show.
Yeah. And we're talking about these super precision gyroscopes, which are one of the terms in which they're described is as an executive toy. And like I said earlier, if you have a toy gun that shoots bullets, like with gunpowder and bullets, then it's not a toy gun, it's a gun. So if a gyroscope does what a gyroscope is supposed to do, it's not a toy gyroscope, it's a gyroscope.
Isn't a Ferrari described as an executive toy?
Yes. So
compared to a Ford Escort.
You can almost guarantee that the word executive toy has some sort of tax connotations, that if you buy one, you're not going to have to pay some sort of tax on it, or it's not subject to some UN law or some other horse crap along those lines, I can imagine.
I had not thought of that, man, but I bet you're right.
It's
recreation.
It's legalese, isn't it? It's an executive toy. Ah, excellent. That means that it doesn't have to subscribe to this sort of rule or policy or.
But separate to that, not only do Globebusters have a fiber optic gyroscope, so it's like a ring laser gyroscope, but also I've got a couple of friends in Latvia who have an aircraft gyroscope. So the aircraft gyroscope, it comes with its own motor. It's going to remain spinning. They should be able to hook it up and just record it. It shows the pitch, roll, it shows everything. So they should be able to just record it and show the face of it, displaying the movement of the Earth as it goes round. But
absolutely. No, there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't. In fact, a lot of them brag, like the modern AIs in, sort of Boeing 777s from Honeywell, I think it is. They brag about being able. They're so sensitive they can pick up the turn of the Earth. There's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't. These things are readily available. You can buy them for a few £1,000. Over to you, Adam.
Yeah, I was just saying because of that fact, all plaudits to Bob. Yeah, man at Globebus, because me and John Antonio have sat with those videos, which are fantastic, the Sagnac experiment, and discussed them at great length, and we've understood them and applied them to our understanding in terms of geocentrism and its disproofs, etc. But the way Bob I thought it was outstanding, the way Bob had used all of that logic and applied the additional stuff in terms of what we have learned recently about electromagnetics to postulate a reason for something that opposes, and this isn't a flat earth excuse, something that opposes the obvious mechanical opposition created by a gyroscope. And I thought that was whether it's true or not, I thought it was absolute genius work by Bob to postulate what he did postulate on Globebusters. Thought it was
I echo exactly what you're saying, your sentiments, totally. Because the way he described it as well was not just by, the Malcolm Bowden and the description, and then discussing the fiber optic gyroscopes and the results, but he'd made sure that he explained. So you have the accelerometers and this other thing. So you have the gyroscope itself, and you have these sensitive motion capturing or motion displaying or motion registering elements. Those elements didn't show any rotation. It was this the thing that's sensitive enough to measure, say, ether, that measured the ether. The things that are mechanical and too robust to measure ether didn't measure anything. It's like, yeah.
I love the distinction he made between the mechanical gyro and the fiber optic and the ring laser gyros. The mechanical gyros are measuring inertia. They're inertial driven, and the fiber optic and the others are so sensitive that they're measuring etheric driven forces. So yeah, they're measuring a force, but it sure as hell ain't the spin of the earth. Or the gyroscope, the mechanical gyroscope would pick that up. Sorry, Antonio, carry on.
Totally. This is the thing. The gyroscope is saying we're not moving, but there's this other thing saying, well, something's
moving. Yeah.
Not
that was the point for me. What Bob said was, no, we're not moving. But what this laser light gyroscope is suggesting is that something is interfering with the light pattern. Okay, something is affecting the rate at which this light pattern is moving. That's what it demonstrated. It doesn't demonstrate anything other than that. Whether we want to extrapolate to the flat Earth, the globe Earth, whatever, what we've demonstrated there is that outside of our expectations, something is interfering in a 24-hour interference pattern on a laser-based gyroscope compared to a mechanical-based. Now, the inference you draw from that, secondly, is, well, we're moving mechanically through space, apparently. Okay, but we're not moving. What then is moving is electromagnetically through space. Now you can make all sorts of, it's the sun, it's the North Pole, it's all these sorts of things. The inference you draw is there is an electromagnetic repeating pattern every 24 hours. That's for me, the scientific inference of what Bob's demonstrated. What people postulate from that point on is theory to me, and work to be done.
Fair enough. It's still showing no movement, though. No actual movement of the contraption.
Well, I think you're right. In a sort of peer-reviewed paper, sort of boundary way, I think you're right. But you can draw inferences from the sun and the moon in terms of the effects on people, on plants, on all sorts of things. I mean, you know, to say that they have some sort of effect on us.
No, what I'm saying is, from that experiment, it's reasonable to make the assumption that the effect we're seeing, if we use a standard mechanical gyroscope next to it and compare it to that we could actually, with quite good assurity, state that what we're seeing here is an electromagnetic effect.
Absolutely.
Okay? Not a mechanical effect. And we appreciate that the Earth moves through space mechanically.
Right,
so whatever that effect is, whether it's the sun moving around us that's creating that magnetic effect, electromagnetic effect that's creating this interference pattern, for want of a better phrase, in the ring gyroscope, that's what that experiment states. You can't draw any more inferences to what it means. What it does mean, as Antonio draw objection to, is, you know, it does show it's not rotating. It shows we're not moving in the slightest, but it shows that also something else is interfering with what we see in the skies, because actually we're seeing a measurable effect on what we would call a ring laser gyro, and the effect is so big it affects a ring laser gyro. Now, to then
and pendulums,
suppose,
for that matter,
what effect does that massive electromagnetic force have on what we perceive in the skies, is my supposition I take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make more sense and less aggressive?
Yeah, totally. I think, okay, I don't believe, I think, and I could be wrong, that in the way that we've been taught to look at the world mechanistically, and the sun is a thing out there in space, and now as flat earthers, the sun is not a thing out there in space, it's something else, but it's still the thing that brings the day and causes warmth and all of. I think we have it backwards. I genuinely do. I think there is an element that we don't understand. There is the thing that causes the sun and everything that goes with the sun. I genuinely do. And I think that at nighttime, this state that during the day causes day, sun, heat, warmth, and light, is saturating. So if you imagine a pie chart, if you will, apportion it however you like, but you have a pie chart and you have two segments. One segment is black and the other's yellow, just for ease of understanding, or blue. Make it blue. The black is saying everything is on, and the yellow or blue is saying there are small elements off. So in the same way that physically we don't move by virtue of our brain sending a signal for us to move. It's the opposite. Our brain is sending us signals to not move all of the time, continuously, other than all the intentions that the brain has for movement, at which point it stops the signal saying don't move. This is what happens with Parkinson's disease. It doesn't do that. It has stopped telling your muscles to not move. So your body, your hands, any motion that you do is your body telling those muscles. It doesn't say, okay, you can fire now. It's saying, okay, I'm not stopping you from firing now. And that's when our hand contracts, whatever the muscle does, okay? That's how we work physically. And yet we think that everything in the universe works the other way around. And it doesn't. It genuinely doesn't. We've been taught that the moon pulls the tides. It doesn't at all. It doesn't do that by any way, shape, or form. No. And not only that, but nature functions, does its thing totally effortlessly. It doesn't invest energy and force. A tree can force its roots right through the base of a castle, but without any force, without any effort. It just does it it does it effortlessly. Now, it looks to me like when we're totally relaxed and think that we're putting no effort, this is when our body's telling all our muscles continuously, don't move, sending an electrical signal continuously to not move. This is nighttime. The earth is saying, don't shine. In the daytime, it's saying, okay, you can stop being told to not do your thing. And we see this with, if anybody has a microwave meter. So there are various different meters you can buy to test microwave radiation or other EMF, sorry. Some of them will have such a wide scope that it will pick up all the wavelengths that come from the sun in terms of heat causing radiation and light. Now, there are others that would pick up white noise. The ones that pick up white noise pick up less white noise in the day than in the night. The white noise it's picking up is radiation. Under the globe, we call it, or they call it, background radiation. And two guys got the Nobel for figuring out by how they were placing a telecommunications radio telescope that way is the center of the universe. That way must have been the Big Bang, because there was a louder hiss when they pointed it that way than the other way. And this was in Australia, by the way. Mm-hmm. So this extraness at night, we dismiss it because there's light lacking. It's like, dude, if you take electricity and you look at lighting, electrical lighting, when you have all of it together, you have black. You don't have white. You have black. We've been taught, oh no, if you get the three together, you have white. It's like, no. This is limited thinking, because for the black, it's not just the light wavelengths, it's the light wavelengths and everything else. And that's what we have at night. And then we have small vortices in this night sky that have a lack of don't be black sky order. And that's what we have as lights. These would be the places where the various different field lines cross over. And a really good video made by a couple called The Ham, who videoed Venus in the night sky as they flew from the UK to Iceland. And it looks like an angel. It looks like a really cool Art Nouveau angel. And this is Venus, and she's a photographer. She knows how to zoom in manually. She zoomed in on Venus, and it's absolutely stunning.
The one with the long sticky out arms, Antonio.
Yes.
Kind of like, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. That's weird, that is.
So this,
I don't know. Are you sure that when I wasn't sure, because I've done some P900 footage shooting. I wasn't sure whether that was effects of the aeroplane window that was creating that streak, because it was so almost cross, you know what I mean? It was quite pronounced, these arms.
I can share the link here. It will take me a minute to find it.
That's fine.
This was happening everywhere, and she made sure to change orientation slightly so people could see that it was coherent. Now, if it was the window, then that's a completely ununderstood effect, because a star or a thing, a light in the night sky, causing this continuous coherent shape in a window glass on a plane. It's like, what effect is going on there?
Oh my goodness, you just gave me chills. When I was about 8, maybe 6, 7, there was this rash across the country in the United States of, I know this is going to get out there for a second, just hold on, crosses appearing in window glass, not in just churches, but in homes, in bathroom windows, and restrooms, and truck stops. I mean, everywhere in certain areas. And it was just like going across the country in this long streak. My father and I went to a place this was happening, 2 different places actually, a church and a restaurant, where the bathroom window was doing it. It wasn't every window. It wasn't a consistent thing. It didn't just happen with sunlight. You could actually go on the other side with a lighter and get this effect. It wasn't disbursement rays. It wasn't the normal thing. It changed the shape, and then it went away. It all just stopped happening. So maybe that was one of these electromagnetic effects like you're talking about with the sun and the light not doing what it's supposed to do because of whatever's telling it to turn on and turn off. So what's telling it to turn on and turn off? That's what we have to figure out.
I think bear in mind, by the way, I'm just telling you something that I've been thinking.
That's what we do here, man. We sing, we throw it back and forth. I mean, you sparked me on this now, so I'm going to go back and find some of those old stories from the 70s now. My goodness.
Cool. So what would be sending out the order is really the question, isn't it? What would be what would be in command of this? What would be running this? Am I right?
Right. That's the force, the nature of it.
How long did she see the angel for? How much of the flight?
I don't know. Maybe she's left it in a comment, but I've just posted the video. If you want to take a look, I could ask her and come back to you guys another time.
Antonio, the supposition for me, outside of whether it was, assume it isn't an effect of the window, the supposition is that what's happening when this light that's arriving from Venus, is somehow it's mutating into a circular form as it hits the atmosphere. I think from footage I've taken, you can sometimes almost see a crescent on Venus. Mm-hmm. So there appears certainly to be a shape shifting. I won't say it's as clear as the moon's, but there certainly appears to be a loss of form actually. I wouldn't say a crescent appearing on it, a loss of form that you get with Venus. And maybe that's so the thing I took from it is that as this light hits the atmosphere, and this image is taken much higher, so there's a lot less atmosphere to look through, what happens is it condenses a bit like on your standard telescope in a ball type way. Yeah. So, you know, is that a lesson we can take for all of the celestial objects, that they're all going to, by the time the light hits us through the atmosphere plane, bad atmosphere plane, that it is going to start to turn spherical or round. Spherical is the wrong word, round. You know what I mean? Yeah, by the time we're perceiving it.
It well could be. I don't know if you know Zach, Good Times for All. He's made a video with a couple of lenses between a light, so a light source, a torch, and the moon. He's showing how you can make a smaller shadow than the object casting the shadow. And he has a couple of those lenses. I forget the name of them, the square flat lenses. And without changing the distance of the object, so the torch, he puts two of these lenses together, and the shape that the torch was giving, which was pretty broad, gets narrower. So these are simulating the atmosphere, and it's taken a pretty broad light and made it thinner, narrower. Sorry, so the diameter is narrower. What you're saying is, and what I think too, is the atmosphere has this impact on light, where the more atmosphere it makes its way through, the more it's condensed to a finer and finer point in a coherent way, which means from every angle to the point where it appears to be a ball. Now, the interesting thing about this video with Venus, and it caused me to ponder this for a long time, is that months earlier, I was at the gym, and they have these vibro plates. And sometimes if I was waiting for my pals to join me, usually we train in the boxing gym. And sometimes if they were late, I'd do a warm-up, and so I wouldn't cool down. I would get on the vibro plate. Now, as I'm on the vibro plate, which is basically plates that vibrate, hence the name, you stand on them, you take a stress posture, and because of the vibration, they course your muscles in order to keep you in that posture to fire on and off continuously, very rapidly. Now, as I'm in this stress posture, I happen to glance at a television set, a display that's displaying whatever, horses or the news, or I forget what it was displaying. But as I look, this is me, I'm not a robot. As I'm looking at the television, it starts to have these scrolling black and white lines that are scrolling down the monitors. These are not line monitors. These are new television sets. So black and white lines with bunching and distortion between these black and white lines. This continuous scrolling, similar to when they used to make TV shows, where in the TV, they would, in the 70s and 80s, they would capture a TV set within the frame, and you'd have that. Now, there's nothing between that TV set and me to be causing this. The TV set isn't doing it. All of them were doing it. I mean, I say TV set, it's a huge freaking plasma, plasma and liquid crystal, all these various
LED, etc. Right?
Yeah, all of them are doing this. I step off the vibro plate, it goes back to perfectly normal. I go back on, and again, it's having this effect. So I start thinking, what the heck is causing this? It's my motion. The television isn't doing that. It's my motion. It's causing my perception to be interrupted or affected in such a way that it's seeing this. Now, what I think with the footage of Venus is that the act of traveling at 500, 600, 550 miles an hour has an effect on light, on Venus. That's what I think. The act of moving, I think if they landed and she filmed it, it would just be a ball like all the other Venus.
I've noticed this effect. I use a percussion massager on my shoulders. I had a wreck. That's what my disability is all about. So I use a compression massager that I noticed at first looking at the clock on because I usually don't even watch TV. I usually never have TV on. I noticed the clock on the display at the bottom of the cable box. This was years ago. And it was doing this weird blinky thing it doesn't normally do. I'm like, okay, what's going on there? And the different vibration as I would increase and decrease pressure or turn it up and down, it would change the wavy patterns. And these are just simple old red dot matrix lights. Then, like you say, I turned the TV on and my mind was blown. It was like, what is going on? It was almost like some kind of weird psychedelic effect. Different. Then I did it. I accidentally touched the back of the neck bone there, and it just increased the patterns change. They would go up and down. They would go back and forth. So this is all just a whole new field of study for us, my friend. You've just opened us up for new stuff.
I might just butt in for a second there. We've got Paul in chat, and he said he's did a video of an angel as well from a plane. That video is on his channel. Cool. And I might just give a shout out to Brett. Brett's an Aussie who I found Flat Earther the other day, and he just sent me a message, DM'd me on Twitter that he's listening in. So g'day, Brett. So no, Paul's got a video there.
Can we pull
interesting
that up,
as well? Yeah.
Wait,
can I give another?
That one's of Sirius too. It's not of Venus. It's of Sirius, and he says it looks like an angel.
Can I? Before you play, are you going to play it?
Yeah, we'll try. It'll take a while to pull it up, mate. Don't worry.
We'll get it up in a few minutes. Yeah.
I was going to say before you do. I really need the toilet. I had that coffee before.
Shall we go for a break?
Absolutely.
It's time for some gravity.
It would definitely be a good idea.
Cool.
It's definitely good. Go ahead.
For everyone in chat, stay around. I know when we usually go for a break, people bugger off and we lose half of our viewers, so just hang around. We'll only be gone 3 or 4 minutes, so just hang around. We'll be back and we'll play Paul's video.
So we're not robots. We do actually have to get stuff out.
No automaton.
We have to take a wizard, don't we, John?
Every time.
Well, I'm going to take this whiz.
Go right ahead, my friend. We're working on getting that up right now.
Remind me to mention the tsunami angels in Japan. There was angels caught there helping people.
Really? My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Guys, whilst we